the world is ruled by those who show up.
Correct.
So if you don't show up, then you don't complain.
Assalamualaikum, apa khabar? Ini JPO.
Celoteh Podcast
Bersama Liyana Marzuki dan saya Menawar.
Selamat datang ke episod ke-6 musim ketiga Jangan Pajak Otak Celoteh Podcast hari ini bersama-sama dengan saya Liyana Marzuki, dan kita ada podcaster terbaru yang kita jemput untuk bersama-sama dengan keluarga JPO. Kalau boleh saya perkenalkan Encik Jonson Chong, bekas peguam, bekas ahli politik dari PKR. Apa khabar?
Baik.
Saudara Jonson.
Terima kasih for inviting me.
Yeah, honored to have you today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Well, I'm a newbie at this, so you have to guide me.
No problem. Tak ada masalah. Sebab saya mendapat pencalonan ni daripada Syed Munawar.
Yeah. My ex-colleague.
Colleague ya. Dia kata dia selalu buat bicara dengan saudara Jonson.
Adalah
berapa kali. Sebelum PRU 15 saya percaya.
Semasa PRU 15.
Semasa PRU 15.
So during that 2 weeks of campaigning, we had a nightly podcast. Malaysia di Persimpangan. Or something like that, if I remember correctly. Yes.
Okay. Cuma minggu lepas kita dah bercakap dengan saudara saudara SM, dan dia katakan JPO ni kalau mengharapkan kami berdua je, masing-masing ada kekangan tugas dan sebagainya. Jadi kita katakan siapa-siapa yang nak bersama-sama dengan JPO untuk jadi podcaster juga, boleh sama-sama dengan kita. Dan kita dapat saudara Jonson hari ini. Dan M juga kata kalau boleh jangan muka Melayu lah, kita kena ada diversification, variety sikit. Dan saudara Jonson, sedikit pengenalan lah kalau penonton nak tahu saudara Jonson, your background. Go ahead.
Okay. So seperti saudari Liyana kata tadi, saya seorang peguam, and we have that in common, which is good. Dululah, I'm no longer in practice. Tapi yang lebih relevan untuk JPO saya rasa adalah latar belakang politik saya. I was at one time the Deputy Secretary General of Parti Keadilan Rakyat. Dan juga pengarah komunikasi pertama Parti Keadilan Rakyat,
PKR.
But just to be clear, not that it's a big deal, but aku bukan masuk PKR terus. Saya sebelum tu adalah ahli Parti Rakyat Malaysia,
PRL, dengan arwah Syed Hussein, Dr. Sanusi Osman, Latifah Koya was my contemporary lah. Jadi masih lagi dalam dunia politik atau sudah keluar?
Tak, I have left that more than 10 years.
More than enough already with politics.
Thank goodness I'm out.
Jadi sekarang menjadi penganalisa, pengkritik politik.
Yalah, I mean I do my own business, but of course you can take the man out of politics, but you can't take the politics out of the man.
Correct. Jadi itu dia podcaster kita yang kita bawa tonjolkan hari ini di JPO, Encik Jonson Chong. Kita panggil Jonson je lah. Jonson ke John je? Jonson,
betul.
Okay. Jonson, kita ada 4 segmen untuk celoteh podcast ini seperti biasa. Okay, seperti biasa. Dan segmen pertama ialah kita sebut Tebus Otak. Mungkin kita boleh roll montage untuk Tebus Otak. Okay, baik. Tebus Otak ni selalunya Jonson, kita bercakap tentang ilmu politik. Pendidikan politik, pendidikan kenegaraan, pendidikan demokrasi. Jadi hari ni topik yang kita sama-sama pilih ialah berkenaan dengan politik dari pandangan orang bukan Melayu, orang Cina. Kita ada bercakap minggu lepas, tapi daripada konteks kami berdua yang tidak mendalami sangat. Jadi saya nak tanya beberapa soalan pada saudara Jonson. Sebenarnya bagaimana orang Cina atau orang India memandang politik itu? Apa gunanya politik?
Okay. Jadi sebelum saya jawab, saya nak bagi caveat dululah.
Disclaimer lah.
Disclaimer kerana I don't think I'm a very good representation of the Chinese person in Malaysia. I think so, yeah. Firstly, because I'm more Western educated. As you know, there are many Chinese educated Chinese.
Okay.
And also, my worldview is quite different, I find. But in any case, I think banyak perkara yang berlaku di Malaysia dari segi politik. I think the vast majority, at least for the Chinese, I can't really say too much for Indians, but I mean, it doesn't really bother them, you know. I just want to do my own thing, cari makan, dan yang lain tu tolong jangan kacau aku lah. Cuma yang sangat hardcore dia akan pergi protes, dia akan pergi apa. So that's why macam bersih, the first one, that was a real watershed moment kerana wah ramai Cina pun keluar, semua bangsa keluar kan. So that was a real watershed moment. But in reality, unless something really, you know, earth-shattering happens, they just want to do their own thing.
You won't bother about politics unless it's affecting their lives.
Yeah. I think some people will say, oh, because the Chinese are so practical, they just want to cari makan, but I don't think so. I think the practicality also is to a certain extent because of the fear. I think many people have not forgotten 1969, especially young older. But because of the older folks that are so conservative or so fearful, and they have maybe subconsciously trained the young people, lebih baik you jangan cakap terlalu banyak. You just sit back. Biar dia cakap, biar mereka gaduh, you know. So in that sense, as a Chinese myself, I'm not too happy about that, because kalau kita tak, you know, get involved, then you don't get a say in where the country goes. Then you let the others decide lah. I think someone has said the world is ruled by those who show up.
Correct.
So if you don't show up, then you don't complain, kan? So to me, I think it has to be a good balance.
Tadi Jonson mengatakan you are not that Chinese. You are, you know, you don't consider yourself. Are you a banana?
Yes, I mean, you can say I went to a mission school, Methodist boys school, and I read mostly in English, sometimes Malay books, but mostly in English, and you know, whatever I consume is English. So I would say to a certain extent I have a very Western worldview, but at the same time I don't like Western propaganda, the Western superiority, you know. So I make it an effort to read like Chinese classics or even Indian classics. So I guess it's not so much about the race, I think. I am not very Malaysian in the sense that I'm not apathetic. I bother to find out what's what, you know. And so in that sense, not very typical Malaysian even lah, I would say, because sometimes when I talk to people, they look at me like I'm an alien, you know.
Okay, back to, you know, pandangan orang Cina tu. Of course you won't claim yourself as fully Chinese and all that. Tapi sebab menjadi seorang ahli politik, you are dealing with Chinese politics as well. You have to understand it, because that's your demographic as well, right? That's your voters. So kalau saya nak faham lah Chinese voters, are they partisan? Are they aligned themselves with, you know, particular party, and they really like taksub?
Let's put it this way. I have many friends. I have friends who are full-on MCA supporters. No matter what has happened, they will think MCA is the best, right? And then there are people who are full-on DAP supporters. So to me, it really sometimes depends on their upbringing or the influences in their life that makes them, you know, support back then the government, BN, or the opposition. I would say, but even so, if we look just at the people who are involved in politics, it's very clear it's divided. But if you look at people in general, I think they don't necessarily lean this way or that way. It all depends on how the country is doing at that time. And well, as we all know, bread and butter issues of the day usually decide where people lean. But oddly enough, again, coming back to the issue of fear, I think Chinese, partly you can say it's because of their practical, mindset. They don't want instability, right? So if you remember the early days when Reformasi broke out, when our current Prime Minister, Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim, was arrested and all that, there were big protests. The Chinese didn't support the opposition because they didn't want to rock the boat. Then our country is going to be all messed up. So you see that kind of wait and see and back off. But when the tide is moving, then they will move. Then you see the unexpected to a lot of people when, was it 2018? When Tun Mahathir became Prime Minister again. That was kind of unexpected, but that was the whole country shifting.
Correct.
You see? Yeah.
Interesting. Bercakap tentang kesetiaan, loyalty. There's this a lot of I think it's not allegation, it's perception that saying that the non-Malays align themselves and be loyal not to Malaysia
but to China
or India. There's those persepsi yang orang katakan orang bukan Melayu ini dia masih lagi setia kepada negara asal, kononnya negara asal. The allegation of pendatang and all that.
Kita semua pendatang,
yeah,
as far as
all
I'm
that,
concerned.
right? It's just that how true is the fact? Is that you still believe that China or Indians is your main country, and here you're just
I think it, to a certain extent, if I look at my own father, right, to a large extent, you can say that about the older generation.
Yeah?
So my father was born in 1932.
Okay.
And actually, I don't know my own family history that well, but I presume he was born here, right? So he would have been second generation. Nevertheless, he always felt very strongly about China. He read Chinese newspapers, even when Gili took over a big portion of Proton, he was like, whoa, very good, So I think to a certain extent it's true of the older generation. But for me, I've never seen myself as a Chinese,
national.
Yeah, PRC Chinese or pure Chinese. I see myself as a Malaysian, right? But of course, as a Chinese Malaysian, not a Malaysian Chinese, and I think that is an important distinction. I am a Chinese Malaysian. I try to be more Malaysian.
What's the difference?
Now, you see, now I get to be English teacher. No,
I think I got it.
Yeah. But Malaysian is the noun, right? What you are. The Chinese Malaysian means that is the adjective, the nature of my real identity. But if I say I'm Malaysian Chinese, that means I am first a Chinese, Malaysian comes second.
Correct.
So I think that's important. And that's why I correct people. I say, look, don't call yourself Malaysian Chinese. That's why MCA is salah. You are no longer MCA, maybe dulu lah. Now you should call yourself Chinese Malaysian Party if you want to say that. So, yeah, it's what were we saying? Aku pun lupa.
The loyalty towards the other country.
So to me, people my age and below don't see ourselves as Chinese. If I watch, very simple lah, watch Olympics, I will be rooting for our Malaysian team, not for the Chinese team. Maybe dulu ada orang would be rooting for the Chinese team, but no, not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, you were saying tadi, about your father. He's still like thinking he's aligned himself with China. But in terms of assimilation to become Malaysian, nak jadi orang Malaysia ni, we still maintain SJKC, SJKT who actually based patah balik sekolah jenis kebangsaan Cina dan Tamil itu kepada negara-negara yang
asal,
right? What do you think about that? Are still relevant di sekolah jenis kebangsaan?
Okay,
to have that spirit of Malaysian, satu bangsa, satu negara. But you still base your education.
That is a very, very good question, and I would say not an easy one to, take it apart and analyze it. But before I answer that question, to be fair to my father, I don't want people to think, wow, my father is like just taksub to China.
Yeah.
In fact, he was very proud of the reality when he was growing up. He always told me, hey, when we were small, when we were in Tanjung Malim, we see Malay, Chinese, abang adik, tak ada masalah, no problem, So he was a bit distraught to see our country growing this way. Now, coming back to the Chinese and Tamil education, I think if you ask all educators, and I am an educator as well, they realize that education is not just about teaching technical things so that children can get jobs, but it is also to teach them about the culture that they came from, right? So in that sense, a lot of Indians and Chinese are very proud and of their own culture, and they would like their children to grow up in that. I mean, if you really think about it, you cannot immerse yourself in Malay culture if you do not master the language. Similarly, you cannot truly appreciate Chinese culture if you don't know the language. So that is a very good justification. So to me, as a Malaysian and an educator, I think the solution is not to get rid of all these schools, but for all Malaysians to be trilingual. At least English, because that's a international language. Bahasa, and your mother tongue, or so-called mother tongue. I mean, my mother tongue should be Chinese, but my first language is English. Right? But if we are trilingual, that makes us so much more powerful, so much more competitive in the world. And yet, we are now fighting each other. We shouldn't have this kind of school, that kind of school. If only all Malaysians can speak 3 languages, we would be superior economically and in so many other ways, isn't it?
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Including the Malays. That's why you see nowadays a lot of Malay parents sending their kids to Chinese schools. And they are happy with that decision.
Yeah.
But what's the issue? The issue are the politicians lah.
Yang kacau. Okay, coming back again, it's so interesting to know that perspective. Selama ni kita bercakap, very myopic. We are talking about Malay politics and Chinese politics, Indian politics, without understanding the whole picture. Kalau bercakap tentang different, the polarized politics itu, from the majority people standpoint, saya percaya yang orang Melayu ni tak faham sangat Chinese, the Chinese tak faham sangat Melayu. Itu yang saya nampak untuk kaum saya, sebab kita rasakan we are so afraid of other race that we feel we don't want to know them. I just want to be with my clan or my race. Bagi Chinese pula bagaimana? Bagi orang Cina pula adakah sama konsepnya yang mereka percaya?
Yeah. You see, I'm glad you asked this question. I think it is very natural for any human being to be wary of anything that's different from. Kan? Tapi there was a book I read by Rutger Bregman. He's a historian. Can't remember the title now. But he said, this is something that we can grow out of. Because as a child, you see some foreign thing, you will cry. But when you're older, your fear level drops. Then you overcome it and then you embrace whatever is different. Kan? But the problem in Malaysia, aku rasa, ialah tiap-tiap hari media ataupun ahli politik akan menakutkan anda. Kalau China take over, this will happen. They will Christianize the country, or the communists will take over. Dia menakutkan. So, we as the people, yang ordinary people, tak ada peluang to overcome this barrier. Tau? So, can you imagine? To me, I always try to imagine the best scenario. Kalau semua orang tak takut, semua orang faham, saling faham. kerjasama, I think our country will be very prosperous.
Correct.
Tapi because the politicians divide us, we can't even compete with some Asian countries. I think Vietnam is overtaking us. Right?
Correct.
So I think that's so sad lah.
Yeah, correct. Wow. It's so refreshing. Memang sangat menyegarkan mendengar pandangan-pandangan, yang kita akan selalu bawa isu-isu begini sebab Jonson, saya rasakan we need to understand each other and we need to appreciate others people's view and perspective so that we empathy, we have that, and then we can understand each other better. Saya rasa kita boleh faham pandangan masing-masing kalau kita nampak dari lensa pemikiran mereka itu. That is our first segment, Jonson. I think it's very inspiring what you said. Very enlightening too. Jadi kita teruskan dengan segmen kedua, apa kerajaan buat minggu ini. Okay, Jonson. Now, apa kerajaan buat minggu ini? We want to touch about Superman Hugh. I think it's linked back to the first segment just now.
Right.
I'm sure you read Superman Hugh, this comic that was initially banned by the government and then it was reversed decision
recently
by the federal court, Court of Appeal first then federal court. Dan ramai yang mengatakan, kenapa kerajaan buat begini, kenapa dah haram tarik balik, and of course jadi political issue oleh all this Islamis and pejuang bangsa and all that. Mengatakan this comic shouldn't be there in the first place. And this, I didn't read yet. I didn't even see the comic
Neither
yet.
have I.
Really. So we just, I think it will be hot selling book later because it's already there. Jadi just your view on this topic first as an introduction.
Of course, pandangan saya ada beberapa level lah.
Okay.
Right? As lawyers, it's obvious kalau federal court dah buat keputusan and the federal court is the check and balance to the government. So the government kena akur lah. Kalau dia still fight, then where does it end, right? So if the federal court as a check and balance have decided the decision to ban was wrong, then the government has to lift it. That's the whole point of judicial review. Now, that's one level. The other level I want to look at it is from the human rights perspective, in the sense of freedom of expression or freedom of thought. Kalau someone has this idea in their head and they want to express it, unless it is obviously criminal, you are inciting people to kill each other or something like that. But if they are expressing their view on history or current affairs, I think in the first place, it shouldn't have been banned. That's my view, as one of the philosophers in the past have said, I may not agree with you, but I will defend your right to your opinion, right? So I think as people who are confident of themselves, who are sure of their own worldview, kalau ada orang yang ada pikiran lain, apa salahnya? Dengar dululah. Kalau you tak setuju, you cakap lah apa yang you rasa. Mengapa nak padamkan? Speaking of that, it got into my head that one of the things that I find rather sad about Malaysia is we have a very rich history, but our historians erase that.
Yeah.
Right? So, for example, currently I'm watching this Vikings on Netflix, and I see, wow, in UK they had Vikings and all the Romans all influencing UK, Great Britain, right? They don't deny this. But why are we denying our maybe Hindu past or Lanka Suka? So this close-mindedness is actually making us less able to compete in the world because we are not using our critical thinking. We are not able to accept different perspectives. I think that is our loss.
So dalam buku itu juga ada yang mengatakan it promotes communism and also apa itu glorify Chin Peng, which is very very sensitive to the majority of people, right?
Faham.
You know, that kind of sensitivity, even though we, of course, we try to appreciate freedom of speech, but it's not, you know, without boundaries, without
where do
limitation.
we draw the line?
Yeah,
right?
where do we draw the line in terms? Itulah cakap English pula dah sebab
sorry ya.
it's okay.
Minta maaf.
Saya yang terikut-ikut. Tapi apa yang saya nak cuba katakan, where do we say that this is, you know,
crossing the line.
Crossing the line. And then kita juga mengatakan, you know, because we are multiracial country, kita negara berbilang bangsa, there are certain things that we cannot say out loud in the open, so that it will be, you know, it won't be taken out of context. And you know, you were saying just now 1969 and all that. We don't want that to happen. In that
Betul.
basis, what do you think about that?
You see,
Curtailing freedom of speech for the purpose of, you know, maintaining stability.
Well, there's so many thoughts going around in my head right now. Sometimes you need creative destruction, if you know what I mean, right? But I think that is not the core of it. The core of it is that we need to enable our citizens to deal with realities, not fool ourselves into thinking black is white, white is black. You know, that's the whole
Jangan
title
Pajak Otak.
of, you know, Jangan Pajak Otak. So if we cannot deal with reality, then we are putting our heads in the sand. So I'm not saying communism is the best thing in the world. But what I'm saying is, let people talk about communism. And if there is a better idea why communism is bad, then let them
Evaluate that.
Evaluate, you know, deliberate, debate. In fact, I mean, I used to be the comms director and I'm very aware of what propaganda is. If we look at history of Malaya, the communists helped to fight the Japanese. And the British were the ones who took advantage of the communists not wanting to take over, allowed them back, and then they created the Malayan Union, right? And this is a historical fact. Again, we're trying to deny that, you know. So sometimes when we put the truth out there, it is not that we sokong communists, but we are putting the truth out there. Communism, in fact, to me, okay, let's take it to another level, at the intellectual level. Actually, the ideas in communism is not that far from Islam. Why does Islam have zakat or Islamic finance? Because it wants to have fairness, it has compassion, solidarity with others. So to me, actually, it's not that foreign. It's just that it's packaged in a different way. Kan? So to me, kalau kita boleh fikir dari pandangan itu ataupun lensa itu, mungkin idea ni pun not bad. Last time, the Western economists all talk about free market. All were in favor of free market. Nowadays, if you look at some of the leading economists, they are talking about we need more socialist ideas. So I think it's about time we open up our minds, as you say, you know, tebuskan.
Otak, right?
Yeah.
Tadi Jonson ada katakan sebagai director comms, you know, propaganda and all that. Do you think that the Superman Hugh comic is a propaganda book?
Quite possibly. So, this is the beauty of it. We always talk about we want a free press, right? But in reality, is there ever really free press? Every newspaper, every news article is written with somebody's own opinion. The editor will edit from a certain angle. The owner will make sure it will only have this slant, right? So no matter which paper, whether it's owned by MCA or owned by UMNO or owned by a businessman, it will have its agenda. What we need are free minds to be able to read between the lines to know what is real and what is propaganda. So to me, you can't live. I mean, the reality is everything out there is propaganda. In fact, whenever a brand like Nike or Apple comes up with an advertisement, that is in a way propaganda also, isn't it? It's saying that brand is no good, my brand is better. That is what Rupert Murdoch is doing for some politicians, and CNN or Fox is doing for some politicians. Similarly, in Malaysia, you will have certain media doing certain things,
bidding for politicians.
For certain politicians.
Correct. Okay, kalau begitu, kalau kita merasakan propaganda itu yang dibuat, are we ready? Our society, can we have our free mind? Minda kita terbuka tak untuk menilai apa yang ada di luar sana? Especially sekarang ada social media, ada misinformation, half-truth, spinning, trolls and all that shape people's view, the world view, right? Your thoughts, Malaysian voters, are they ready to face all this?
Two general ideas in my head. Number one, we have to start somewhere. Kalau kita cakap selalu not ready, we will never be ready. In fact, if you talk to the top coaches, life coaches or whatever in the world, they will always tell their coachees, there's no such thing as ready. You just got to start doing it. And as you do it, you become better and better. Right? That's number one. Number two, as a lot of people say, it comes back to our education system. If we keep telling them, this is, and only this is the real answer and the right answer, and this is the reality, everything else is not right, don't even go there. You are not teaching people, you are indoctrinating them, right? So the job of a teacher is not to open up the otak and then pour something in, but rather it is to open up the otak and let it absorb everything, and then teach it to differentiate or how to evaluate what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. I think that has to start. So I think the whole concept of education should move away from just getting degrees, get a job. It is about
critical thinking.
Let the human being grow to his full potential. I think that's the way it should be. Go. Yeah.
Okay. Berbalik pada Superman Hugh. Ada mengatakan this character is a bit extreme in his worldview. This kita ada dulu banyak Ronnie Liu, not just in DAP, we also have this far right and far left. What do you think of this character Superman Hugh? Because there's a lot of many issues before where he attacks the Malay with all the statements. You think it's okay for
I think it's calculated. It's calculated to get the attention, to get the controversy going. Whether it's okay or not okay, that is a very subjective question. I think it's okay because I know where he's coming from, and he's sometimes doing things very tongue-in-cheek, deliberately to provoke a reaction, to get people to think, oh, wow, like that, But so to me, it is not so much of whether people get frightened or whatever. You see, this reminds me of the woke culture in America. It's become a situation whereby if anyone gets offended by what you do, we got to stop doing it. Kalau macam tu, wow. One day we'll never be able to do anything because everyone is so sensitive. Oh, that's too sensitive. Oh, that's offensive. That's insulting. Kalau macam tu, a lot of art tak boleh buat. Right? A lot of movies out. There are no new radical ideas. Anybody say something different, tak boleh. Then we will never progress. So that's why I say it is about opening our minds. It's not about the subject itself. It's
how we perceive it.
It's ourselves, or not the object. It's about we have to see ourselves and as agents of change, or as agents that can frame what we are processing, right? What we are consuming, I think that's the way to go. I mean, some people even say what Zuna draws is bad. Hello? What about Fahmi Reza? You remember Fahmi Reza? The badut, you know? Hey, I thought that's brilliant. But to some people, that's offensive. No.
Yeah.
So where do we draw the line? Yeah.
Okay, Jonson, that's great. I mean, hearing from you. We are on the second segment. Perhaps we proceed untuk segmen ketiga. Saya ada bercampur-campur bahasa ni. Patutnya saya maintain bahasa Melayu. Tapi dengan Jonson ni.
Minta maaf
tapi tidak
lah.
mengapa. Kita podcast sahaja, santai-santai. Jadi kita teruskan dengan segmen ketiga. Apa Pembangkang buat minggu ini? Okay, Jonson, memang minggu ini sedikit panaslah juga apa yang berlaku, apa yang Pembangkang buat, terutamanya Presiden Perikatan Nasional. Ada isu yang berbangkit berikutan ucapan beliau di PRK Nenggiri yang seolah-olah dikatakan memerli atau memperlekehkan istana, particularly mantan yang di-Tuan Agong. Ya, kita dah dengar ramai yang beri komen. Beliau juga telah dipanggil ke Balai Polis untuk memberikan keterangan dan beliau masih lagi menekankan yang apa yang dikatakan itu the truth, nothing but the truth, kebenaran, dan beliau tidak ada apa-apa tindakan untuk mohon ampun dan maaf kepada istana walaupun Tengku Mahkota Pahang telah mengeluarkan kenyataan yang dikatakan sedikit murka dengan apa yang diperkatakan. Jadi your view sikit daripada pandangan, saya nak tanya daripada pandangan bukan Melayu ni. Kalau saya nak buka lah, Jangan Pajak Otak kan, dan ada benefit Jonson di sini. Your view on the royal.
Okay. So this one I have to be careful.
Very, very careful because it's 3R. Kalau you're not careful, you've got banned.
Yes. So, well, as a human rights advocate, right? I always think that freedom of thought, freedom of expression is very important. But at the same time, I also recognize the importance of stability of the country, and respect for its institutions. Now, having said that, I think, number one, truth is very important. Probably more important than many, many other things. And I also believe that the Sedition Act is something that should not exist. One of the reasons is obvious, because Sedition Act was created by the British to control political leaders in Malaysia, right? And we inherited it. And ironically, for many, many years, the current government was the one that said they want to repeal the Sedition Act. And yet now it's being used against Tan Sri Muhyiddin, right? So to me, let's put that aside. I don't think what he did was really seditious. He is giving his view about what happened, what transpired after GE15, right? And just because, again, the woke culture, just because you rasa tersinggung or you rasa, why you are questioning the Sultan. Come on. Yes, he may be the king, right? Ampun tuanku, but he's still a man. And I'm just giving my opinion. So just because of that. So to me, what I really dislike about the whole thing is politicians using certain laws, playing with people's emotions to score brownie points. For all you know, Tuanku doesn't really mind. You say whatever you want to say.
But does this Tengku Mahkota came out with that statement saying
well, he is also entitled to his opinion. I mean, let's look at some other countries. Which country has a royal institution that is even more prominent than Malaysia? I think the first country that comes to mind is UK, right? And in UK, wow, the press sometimes, the caricatures they print of King Charles or even dulu, Queen Elizabeth II. Wow, I mean, if that happened in Malaysia, terus you go to jail already. But there they can tolerate it. Why? Because to them, my standing, my worth as a monarch is not dependent on what you say. It's dependent on what I do, how I carry myself, right? So to me, it works both ways. Kalau the monarch has this stature that everybody respects and all that, naturally people would so-called toe the line and be respectful when they speak. But if we need something external like a law to make sure you don't insult them, then these people could be in their heart insulting you, but how does that benefit you? So in reality, I think the monarch wants the true loyalty, the true respect to come from the people, not because dia takut ditangkap kerana ada sedition act. So I think, well, if we boil it down to the basics, is again the politicians using the situation to try and putar belit and then score brownie points. I think that then the rakyat themselves are the ones that are being led this way and led that way. But in any case, I think to most ordinary Malaysians, I don't think they care that much. They are more focused on nak cari makan lah. Can I even put food on the table for my kids? So this kind of thing, I think it is only the politicians and the media playing it up. I think the ordinary man on the street not really care.
But when it comes to the royal and boleh jadi sedikit sensitif kepada orang Melayu, because we put them at that pedestal, right? Dan ada seorang ahli politik yang dikatakan mengguris perasaan baginda, and then the Putera Raja Tengku Mahkota mengeluarkan kenyataan yang mengatakan dia murka dan sebagainya. Maybe itulah saya nak tahu perspektif Chinese as well, right? To the Malays, for me, I think I was born and bred in a very orthodox, fundamentalist Malay family that you look up at to Yang di-Pertuan Agong and juga Sultan, and you have political leaders who actually blatantly saying that he is not satisfied of his decision of choosing someone else to become the prime minister. And then kalau boleh kita tayangkan sendiri video tersebut daripada awal sampai habis, sehingga yang dikatakan berkenaan dengan istana itu kita boleh tayangkan.
Kalau nak dapat lebih satu, dia boleh bentuk kerajaan. Tapi saya dapat 115. Kalau ikut kiraan perlembagaan, saya sudah ada jumlah yang lebih daripada mencukupi untuk jadi Perdana Menteri. Ini bukan nak mengungkit, but it is a record of history. Tapi entah macam mana, yang di Pertuan Agong waktu itu tak ajak jemput saya pergi istana angkat sumpah. Siapa yang Pertuan Agong dulu? Faham dah
So, kalau kita tengok video tersebut, Jonson, saya rasa yang pada peringkat permulaan itu a bit fair. Dia mengatakan what happened during that day, that particular day that he got that 115 SDs and all that, and then tetapi bila dah akhir tu dia ada mengatakan kenapa dia tak dijemput di istana. Tak tahulah siapa yang Pertuan Agong seperti itu. It's like in a way for me lah, hearing it,
it's slighting
macam a bit ridiculing,
a bit sarcastic
and all that normally. And the majority of people, I mean the Malays is very sensitive, but of course because he is a president of a party, a big coalition party. Of course, those supporters akan try to, mellow it down and try to put it under the carpet. But to the fan-sitters Malay, they're looking at it dan mengatakan, oh, you did it again. Last time you did it during the darurat, right? Where, the same Agong said that, what, what is this? I also disappointed with what you did. Jadi dia buat lagi sekali as though as is a pattern coming from the same leader. What do you think of that?
Well, maybe my views are a bit biased because I'm a bit of a Republican.
I can see that.
So, I mean, we live in a constitutional monarchy, so I just accept that, right? But if we look at things at a most basic level, we are just all human beings. We rule of law, not ruled by law. So that is his views, and he's entitled to say it, in my opinion. And I don't think it's that offensive. Yeah, it might be. Kalau your friend talk like that about you, and you overheard, yeah, you might feel, mengapa dia cakap macam tu? But it's okay lah. I'm not going to kick up a fuss because of that, right? So I think it is that kind of level, you know. It's not the kind of level of insult whereby wah, orang tu, yeah, it's totally run you down sampai, you know, macam completely defamatory and, you know, make you sound like you are the devil. Then it's a different thing. So I think we have to take everything with a grain of salt lah. This is the reality. And kalau orang politik bercakap macam tu, biasalah. You know, they were trying to be emotional and all that, you know.
Purposely emotional?
Purposely, yes. I mean, even, come on, everybody knows one of the most charismatic speakers in our country today is our Prime Minister. He knows how to use emotions as well. Kan? So, I think it's almost like a non-issue to me. In fact, yesterday I had dinner with a couple of Malay friends, and when I brought this up, they said, "Halah, ini ini bukan seditious lah. It's just all these politicians, you know." So to me, sometimes we are making mountains out of molehills, and deliberately. And I can understand where they are coming from. That's why sometimes I just turn off the news lah. I don't even follow what is going on until someone said, "Hey, these are the topics for this podcast."
Itu saya sebenarnya. You were saying just now baru nak buka news because of the JPO podcast. Okay, interesting. It's a very insightful view. Okay, kita dah ke segmen ketiga. Kita boleh teruskan dengan segmen terakhir, segmen keempat, dan 45 minit dah kita. Biar benar, kita roll montage. Okay, Jonson, segmen keempat ni kita nak bercakap tentang topik-topik atau perkara-perkara di luar sana yang orang boleh percaya ke tak boleh percaya. Biar benar kan, biar betul. Biar benar ke biar betul, dah tukar dah.
Biar benar.
Hari tu kita ada undian yang kata biar betul. Dan bila kita bercakap tentang biar betul ni, sekarang ni banyak juga keratan-keratan. I read the news recently. And mengatakan Malaysia sekarang di atas landasan ekonomi yang betul. Ringgit bertambah baik. Bursa saham Malaysia dah semakin mencanak-canak naik. Dikatakan tahun ini akan menjadi, you know, Malaysia one of the best economy in Asia. Ada banyak-banyak. Adakah itu perkara yang sebenar? Adakah ekonomi makin baik, dan adakah rakyat merasai prestasi ekonomi tersebut? Your thoughts?
Saya bukan ahli ekonomi.
Okay.
So, to me, all that might be true. I'm not sure where that information comes from, probably from the media. And media means propaganda sometimes, or most of the time. But bagi saya, it may be true. The more important question is, kalau there is economic growth, kalau we have all these opportunities, are those opportunities equally shared with all Malaysians? All Malaysians have a chance to earn more money. All Malaysians have better opportunities to grow their business. That is the important question. So what if a country earns a lot of money, but it only goes to the 1%? A very good example to me is America. They always tell the whole world we are a democracy, but they are a plutocracy. They are ruled by the rich. That's it. But they hide behind this beautiful word called democracy. So we have to be careful that our country doesn't go in that direction. We can say, yes, it's economy very good. Tapi, as you rightly pointed out, do the rakyat feel it? Do the rakyat have an opportunity to grab a piece of this growing pie? I think that is the important question that we should be asking ourselves, asking the government.
Saya tanya balik soalan tu. Do you think that rakyat can feel it based on your
I don't think so.
conversation?
I don't think so. I have friends who are employees. I have friends who are businessmen. When I hear them speak, especially the businessmen, things are bad. Things are very bad. You know, I still hear people closing down businesses, and they are struggling to figure out how to get more business and all that. And I think we need to be innovative lah. Let's put it that way. We can't use the same old techniques or solutions, because the world is changing so rapidly, and now people can even buy things from overseas so easily. So how do we ensure local businesses or employees here get those kinds of opportunities?
So the data, apa-apa saja data yang dikeluarkan, you think it's just mere
No, I think
sugarcoating?
That one, honestly, I don't know. I can't tell.
Okay.
But that's why I said, even if all that is true, and it may very well be true, tapi does trickle down economics work? I don't think so. Trickle down, memang trickle down lah, sikit lah. Yang lain, it will still be caught up there, you know. So maybe the economists amongst us, right, like Prof. Jomo and all that, they should be telling the rakyat about our Gini coefficient. Is it improving? Is it becoming more sama rata? Or is it actually wider, the discrepancy between the rich and the poor? I think that is what we need to look at. You know, the direction the government needs to go.
That way. Maybe, I don't know, the defense or apa yang mereka cuba katakan, walaupun economic data datang makin baik dan sebagainya, akan memerlukan masa for that trickle down effect untuk dirasai oleh rakyat jelata, because you have the ringgit is improving, the bursa saham pun makin menaik dan sebagainya. It will, the investment that coming in atau pelaburan yang masuk itu akan dirasai, tetapi mengambil masa juga. It's just, this
Betul.
1-2 years, only 20 months. Do you think it will get better for the rakyat? They will feel the trickle down effect eventually?
Saya setuju, semua ni akan ambil masa. Tapi saya nak cakap, dia akan lebih cepat kalau kita tak ada kronisme, tak ada korupsi, dan sistem memang adil lah. Then the trickling down will be faster. But, I hate to say this, but it appears to me, every single time there's a new government, you will see new GLC appointments, and the GLCs have a very big role to play in the Malaysian economy, right? And why do they put political appointees there? I let the rakyat, the viewers, judge for themselves, right?
That's one thing that kita harapkan. Sebab the same government dulu mengatakan no political appointees, but yet they are doing it. The same nowadays. Political patronage, I think that's the right. issue, right? You were in PKR before, right? And PKR ini membawa islah reformasi.
Betul.
They want to bring reform, change things dan sebagainya. These 20 months, there are also certain changes made in terms of, I read that day there's this Fiscal Responsibility Act. There's no direct nego. Tak ada dah lagi rundingan terus dan sebagainya. Do you think they've started? already that reform that they wanted to do all this while?
I think slowly there are things that are changing. Yeah,
Slowly.
You know, too slow for my liking lah.
Yeah.
Because I won't name the cases because I'm involved in a legal case, a judicial review actually against DBKL, and it is related to a development order of a high-rise condo on a hill in Wangsa Maju. And to me, if we are really reformasi, this kind of thing shouldn't be happening. You know? So that's why I'm very proud of the fact that I'm from PRM. I am latter day became PKR. Because the laungan kita, nombor satu, hidup rakyat. Nombor dua, reformasi tulen. It must come from here lah, you know. Our soul or our heart, not just laungan saja. Dulu ada One Malaysia, you can have reformasi. All these are just slogans, but we really need it to come from within us so that we have the country that we want. Now we have this thing we call Madani. But let's ask the rakyat jelata lah. Bila you pergi counter di mana-mana pejabat kerajaan, you rasa ke Madani ni? I've been to many government departments for various things. Kadang-kala I don't feel it. I really don't feel it, you know. So to me, I don't know, maybe the justification would be because some people say deep state lah. No matter what the ministers want to do, because the government servant has so much authority, it's so difficult to change. I think there's a
merit to that.
Yeah, merit to that. There's a certain truth to it. But if we are the leaders and we have the authority and we have the courage, we can make significant changes. I believe that. And to me, as a former politician and a political, observer, I think you are given this moment to do your best for the country. You got to seize the moment. Nak tunggu sampai bila? Because dalam 3 tahun, you may not be here anymore. Yeah. So maybe it's unfortunate there was no clear outright majority for the current government. That's why
it's so hard to do the reforms. Soalan terakhir untuk episod ni, if I may, we talk about politics, picking the lesser evil, choosing the devil that we know rather than the angels that we know unfamiliar with. Lesser evil, who do you think now? Are we having a lesser evil ruling the country?
I think to many non-Malays, yes. Yeah. This is the unfortunate reality of Malaysian politics because we are so divided by race and religion, and the politicians know so well and they use race and religion to divide us. So you see nowadays kalau banding dengan dulu, majority sangat jelas. Zaman dulu BN sangat kuat kan, ya. Tapi sekarang kalau you tengok parti-parti masing-masing, dia punya sokongan kecil saja. You need to combine them to get one big majority, So this is actually, to me, a very, very bad trend. Why do I say that? Because I always believe for a country to progress, it must have stability. But when you have this polarization and this fragmentization of power or support, then it'll be that much more difficult to progress. So I honestly, if you ask me, I don't know what the answer is, but I definitely think we need leaders that are courageous, that are competent to do the right thing. Not just, pandai cakap, tapi mesti buat yang betul demi rakyat, demi negara. Bukan untuk parti politik masing-masing.
Okay, baik. Itu dia podcaster jemputan kita minggu ini, Encik Jonson Chong. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Saudara
Thank you.
Jonson kerana bersama-sama dengan kita. Dan saya rasa banyak yang saya belajar hari ini. Banyak saya yang kita belajar, perspektif baru, very insightful ya. Dan saya rasa kita akan selalu juga jemput Saudara Jonson ke pentas JPO kerana kita nak mendapatkan lebih-lebih banyak world view dia. Dan juga tidak hanya melihat daripada mata lalat itu, kita kena melihat daripada mata burung.
Maybe next time I ask you questions.
Yes. I was hoping for you just now to ask me question. But tak apa, ini saya rasa chemistry cukup baik. Apa yang kita ada hari ini, Saudara Jonson, kita akan teruskan insyaAllah bagi episod-episod masa datang. Akan datang. Terima kasih sekali lagi.
Thank you.
For you to
Thank you.
being here with JPO dan insyaAllah any last word to the penonton?
Not really. It's been a real pleasure. I enjoyed myself.
Thank you.
Terima kasih kepada Liyana kerana jemput saya dan kawan-kawan di JPO.
Okay.
And I love your title. Jangan Pajak Otak. I love it.
Thank you kerana bersama-sama dengan kami on this path of making people, kita panggil jihad intelek rakyat.
Wow, I like that.
Jihad intelek rakyat. Jadi kita jumpa lagi minggu depan. Mana baik kita sokong, mana salah kita bantah. Daripada saya Liyana Marzuki dan
Jonson Chong. Jumpa lagi.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum, apa khabar? Ini JPO.
Celoteh Podcast
bersama Liyana Marzuki dan saya Menawan.